The president threw out another tweet concerning the Fed. He says, and I'm quoting here, "The only problem our economy has is the Fed. They don't have a feel for the market. They don't understand necessary trade wars or strong dollars or even democratic shutdowns over borders. The Fed is like a powerful golfer who can't score because he doesn't have a touch. He can't putt." Come in, Steve Moore, author of Trumponomics and Heritage Foundation chief economist. Steve, first of all, what do you make of the president's tweet?
Well, I don't know if I would say it's the only thing that's holding down the market, David, but it's clearly the trigger by the way, this didn't start, last week. This started back in September. I mean, if you look at where the real bear market started, it was with the huge mistake that the Fed made in September when they raised rates. And of course, every sane person was saying, don't raise rates again this year, given the negative reaction to that first move, and also the fact that we have deflation now. I mean, look what's happened to commodity prices just in the last week, but over the last year, commodity prices are down 10%. That's a signal, as you know, David, of deflation. It makes zero sense in any
There is
economic,
no inflation. There
category.
is no inflation. Brian Westbury was pointing that out before.
David, let me correct you. It's not that there's no inflation, it's deflation.
Yes,
and that
yes.
we learned from the 1930s, deflation can be as bad as inflation.
But they believe...
Look,
They believe, forgive me, Steve, they believe, the Fed still believes that if you have strong growth, you have to have inflation. They don't get it.
Exactly. They think growth causes inflation. It's this Keynesian model that should be thrown out on the street. Look, I was being a little bit provocative today in my piece, but I do think, Jerome Powell should really think about whether he's up to this job. I mean, since he's been, the last two rate moves, we've lost, 3,500 points on the Dow, and it's just sapping the economy of wealth at a time, by the way, David. I mean, Trump is right. If you look at the real economy, let's think about this. We've got, 1 week left in 2018. This has been a blockbuster year for the economy. We've had the strongest growth this year that we've had, since at least in 20 years. So this has been a really good year for the economy. And I've never seen, you've done this a long time too, David, I've never seen such a divergence in where the real economy is going and where the stock market is going.
Absolutely. Well, then you had that horrendous press conference where Jerome Powell was talking about how important it was for markets to hear what the Fed thinks. As he was talking, the market went down 400 points. I mean, everybody in my office was saying, stop talking.
Exactly. I mean, you'd think maybe he would have bought a vowel and said, wait a minute, this isn't working. Look, I agree with your previous guest there, David, that you look at earnings of companies, they're still pretty darn good. Yeah. And, stocks are as cheap today as I've seen them in 20 years. I don't pick individual stocks, but I love just buying the blue chips right now at these low prices. It's unbelievable. And I'm not saying, by the way, the sell-off is done. I'm just saying if you're in for the 3 or 5 year or 10-year horizon, you buy those stocks today, you're going to love it 5 years from now.
Steve, one thing that I think the president is not saying is a problem that you and I would think could be a problem is the whole tariff war thing that's still going on. But China has cut tariffs on more than 700 goods, and you say a trade deal with China would actually overcome all the mistakes that the Fed has made, right?
I really believe so. I mean, I think that when I said there's two factors, it's basically the Fed, taking dollar liquidity out of the economy when we need more of it because we got such pro-growth policies. And the other thing is the uncertainty about this trade deal. And you're right. I mean, nobody seems to be paying proper attention to what's going on in China. Number one, their economy's gotten hammered by you think it's bad here. Look at what's happening in China. Their market's down, 15 to 20% this year. Their industrial production is down. Their warehouses are full of merchandise they can't sell. I do think there's a pretty good likelihood in the next 60 or 70. How many days is it now? 60 days until this 90-day period is up.
I think we have 60 left, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a pretty good likelihood. You never know what Beijing is going to do. But, President Trump is going to get a call from President Xi saying, let's make a deal. Let's get this done. And if that happens, I don't know about you, David, I think the stock market goes through the roof.
Steve, I hope you can have a restful Christmas. I know there's nothing